Good morning, everybody. Hope your Thursday's off to a good start because mine isn't, because I had to take a look at some Seahawks footage to get some screenshots for this video, and I saw a lot of things that I didn't enjoy seeing. So, you guys might remember a few weeks ago, after the Minnesota Vikings game, I made a video where I discussed one troubling trend that I noticed from that particular game. Now, it's a trend that I see a few times in pretty much every Seahawks game, especially lately, but I really called it out there because that game represented the worst that the Seahawks defense had to offer, and I wanted to draw some sort of correlation between that trend and their poor performance. Unfortunately, here we are a few weeks later, and I think I'm going to have to do it again because not only did we see a recurrence of that trend, we saw a significant increase in it. So I am talking specifically about dropping defensive linemen, mostly defensive ends, but troublingly enough, not always into coverage. We did it multiple times against the Vikings. I pointed it out, and I pointed out how quite often the plays where we dropped defensive linemen back into coverage ended up being good plays for the Vikings offense. I pointed out how it wasn't leading to any positive results because it's not like we were finding creative ways to generate a pass rush otherwise. And it just clearly didn't make sense for this team. It wasn't working. It wasn't working on any level. And it was something that needed to go away. But here we are, this Steelers game, game number 6 of the season. I'm seeing defensive linemen dropping back into coverage more. So somehow, these guys running the Seattle Seahawks defense think that the best way to get out of a hole is to keep digging. So I wanted to illustrate some points, so I went through some of the footage of the game we played on Sunday night, and I decided to highlight some specific plays where a defensive lineman dropped back into coverage, and we're going to go over them and see how many examples I found. Now, keep in mind, this is not every example from the game, but it is probably most of them, so you can get a pretty good idea of how big the issue is based off these examples. Okay. So this first example is from the first Steelers touchdown drive of the game. 11 minutes left in the second quarter. We have Benson Mayowa back here. You can see Roethlisberger's about to throw the ball. He's got a couple good options over here. And Benson Mayowa, 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, not rushing the passer. Clearly more interested in covering Eric Ebron. And I know there's a bit of a caveat with Benson Mayowa, which I will get to in a moment, but for now, just feast your eyes on that. Benson Mayowa in coverage. Okay, play number 2. We have a little bit later in the drive. This is actually the touchdown. Just about a minute later, you can see Jamal Adams coming in on the blitz. You can see that we are sending guys to pressure Roethlisberger. But Benson Mayowa is dropping back into coverage. You can see him back here in coverage on Najee Harris. I think it's Najee Harris. And he ends up allowing the touchdown in coverage because Roethlisberger hits Harris out of the backfield and they get a touchdown. So Benson Mayowa in coverage, 3 yards back from the line of scrimmage, nowhere near the quarterback. And he ends up allowing a touchdown in coverage too. So just for the record, I didn't see, not saying it didn't exist, but I didn't see defensive linemen dropping back into coverage on the first drive or the second drive or any of the first quarter drives. So we start dropping linemen back into coverage and we give up a touchdown. I cannot help but feel these two events are related. Okay, play number 3. This is a little later in the second quarter, 6:42 left. We have Roethlisberger dropping back to pass, and we have Benson Mayowa over here about 2 yards away from the line of scrimmage, dropping back into coverage once again. And this ended up being a positive play for Pittsburgh, if I recall correctly. And it was definitely something that you saw a lot with Mayowa specifically. And we're going to jump ahead to play number 4 here real quick to illustrate that point, because this is Benson Mayowa again. Roethlisberger's back to pass. We've got men on the rush on him, but Benson Mayowa is not one of them. He's in coverage close to the line of scrimmage, a good distance away from Roethlisberger, more interested in covering up here. Now, I know what some people are going to say, which is Benson Mayowa was playing a lot of Sam linebacker against the Steelers, and Sam linebackers occasionally cover, which is true, and there is some validity to that thought process. My thing is, Benson Mayowa, that's not his game. He is a defensive end. He is meant to rush the passer. I don't see him as being a guy who's anything other than below average to bad in coverage. So putting him in this position this many times in the first half of a game, it illustrates that this roster is messed up, or the coaches are or something's messed up. Benson Mayowa should not be dropping back into coverage this many times. And maybe the problem, the genesis of the problem is that he's playing linebacker at all. But this is not how you use a player like Benson Mayowa to his strengths. His strengths are limited enough as is. And as for the argument that we only did this with Mayowa, because if Mayowa was the only guy on the line dropping back into coverage, I might not think it's that big of a deal, because it's got to be somebody, right? And in fairness, Benson Mayowa, while he's not good in coverage, might be a better candidate than some other guys. However, let's jump forward here. Poona Ford. This is interesting, right? So, 3rd down and 3, quick pass. Roethlisberger's already released the ball as of this picture, and you can see Poona Ford hanging around near the line of scrimmage, thinking more about trying to cover Chase Claypool or be in the area against Chase Claypool than rushing Roethlisberger. So, feast your eyes on this one, guys. We have found ourselves a blood moon. Poona Ford, in coverage. You will not see this every day. And this was not the only time where Poona Ford dropped back into coverage. Now, I know that some people are going to argue that it kind of worked because he ended up being in the area of Chase Claypool, who ended up catching the first down. But it didn't work. We still gave up the first down. Poona Ford got targeted in coverage and gave up a first down pass. So even if it showed some degree of functionality, it still didn't produce the desired result. And that's something that I'll talk a little more about later in this video. But yeah, feast your eyes on this one, ladies and gentlemen. You will not see this very often. Hopefully, you'll never see it again. You did see it at least one more time later in this game, unfortunately, but hopefully we don't see it going forward. Okay, so this is the 3rd quarter. I think this is Pittsburgh's field goal drive right after our first touchdown. 3rd and 4, and we have, I believe this is Darrell Taylor in coverage. Now, I don't have a huge objection to Darrell Taylor occasionally dropping back in coverage, because that is supposed to be part of his skill set, and as a young player, we should be finding out what he can and can't do. But at this stage in his career, and given the fact that he's the only truly effective pass rusher so far this season, I would kind of be inclined to make sure that he's one of the guys rushing the quarterback on 3rd down. Like, this is a passing down. This is a big play in this game. You get off the field. You've really seized momentum. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of want Darrell Taylor, the guy who leads the team in sacks, and it's not even close, to be involved in that pass rush. I see a bunch of guys rushing up here who don't have any sacks yet. Dunlap, Hyder, Adams. I don't know. Call me old-fashioned, but I think your best pass rusher should be rushing the passer on a big 3rd down. Okay, moving right along here. 3rd and 9 in the 4th quarter, halfway through. And here we have Rasheem Green, a new defensive end dropping back into coverage. On this play, he ends up kind of looping back around and getting involved in covering the short area in front of the line of scrimmage here. Rasheem Green is somebody who has mostly not been dropping back into coverage that much since the regular season started, but here we see it again. And by the way, we are now up to example number 7 of a defensive lineman dropping into coverage. And I understand that Mayowa is occasionally lining up as a linebacker, but I call him a defensive end for the purpose of this video because that's where his skill set is best lent to. He's not an amazing pass rusher, but that's his strength as a player. So another example, another great example right here. Rasheem Green, not involved in the pass rush. Not that Rasheem Green's really good at that much of anything right now, but if you're going to use him, you should probably be sending him at the quarterback. Okay, now we're going on to play number 8 here. And this one's a little bit wacky. So, 2nd and 15, Roethlisberger drops back deep to pass. Benson Mayo is right here kind of covering the left flat. And you may have noticed that I also circled Al Woods like he's covering. He's actually not, but he really looks like it, doesn't he? And I just had to point this out because I found it funny, because the first time I pulled up this play on the replay and I saw Al Woods like initially going like this, I was like, did we really just do that? Did we really just place Al Woods in coverage? Fortunately, he ends up kind of looping around and trying to get to Roethlisberger on the right side of the offensive line, so it actually wasn't. But for a couple of minutes there, well, a couple seconds, I thought that we dropped Al Woods back into coverage, and that made me laugh. And on days like today, when we're talking about the Seahawks' ineptitude, sometimes you just need something to make you laugh. So, yeah, Benson Mayo is still in coverage here, though. And finally, we go to an overtime play, and everybody remembers this play because Trey Brown makes a great play to prevent a first down, and it's the play that has gotten a lot of people excited about him. Or it's the main play that got people excited about him. But what you may have not noticed is Benson Mayowa once again dropping back into coverage up here. And that's 9 examples. Most of them are Benson Mayowa, I understand that. And I understand that it was kind of an odd situation because we did need somebody to fill the Sam linebacker role, and he was one of the better candidates available. I get that. But this just kind of goes to show how screwed up things are with this team right now, with this defense, with this roster, with the way we distribute snaps. Somebody who is not good at this role is forced to do this role over and over and over again. Benson Mayowa dropped back into coverage so many times against Pittsburgh, I think Chris Collinsworth accidentally called him a defensive back at one point. So, this isn't even exhaustive. I remember another play where Poona Ford dropped back into coverage. I think I remember a play where Benson Mayowa literally lined up as a nickel cornerback. So, this is not exhaustive, but it shows you how deep the problem runs. And the Seahawks defensive coaches are not moving away from this. They're digging deeper into it. They think that this is a way that their defense can start playing well. And I understand the defense didn't play terribly against Pittsburgh, but you got to understand that's not a very good offense. And as I'll get into later this week, we got no pressure on an immobile, aging, weak-armed quarterback. Like this was a very, very remedial offense that the defense got to play against, and they did some things fairly well, but still a lot of things poorly. So let me ask you this, because when we're talking about the defensive lineman dropping back into coverage, some people like that kind of thing. And I understand that there are some defenses that do things like that, and they do it very well. There's probably going to be a day in the future, a long time from now, where the Seahawks defense does this well. But when was the last time you saw a Seahawks defensive lineman drop back into coverage and the opposing quarterback was so surprised, so shocked, so not prepared for that he just threw the ball right to the lineman and he picked it off? And he had no idea he was there. He was just like, wow, I did not see that coming. That never happens. Most of the time when we do this, the opposing offense makes a good play, and even when there is a good play made by the defense, I don't think it was because we dropped a lineman into coverage. So it's not working, period. Even if you like the idea of dropping defensive linemen into coverage from a philosophical standpoint, we're not making it work. And I think it's because we're giving it away too much pre-snap and we're making it too obvious. So teams are just able to say, okay, he's dropping back into coverage. I will account for that and move forward. That would be my best guess. But also, we don't have guys who are very good at that kind of thing. Carlos Dunlap, a big reason why he faded out in Cincinnati was because he is a pass rusher, a traditional defensive end, and they were trying to switch to a 3-4, and his role changed. So I'd like to see this reduced very, very much. Reduced to like once or maybe twice a game, not 9+ examples in one game. But let me know what you guys think down below. I'm out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. Of all the things this defense is doing poorly right now, I think this is one thing that would be fairly easy to stop, and I would like to see it stop immediately. Let me know what you think. Go Hawks.